Hello, and welcome to Components of an Effective Lesson, using your planning time to develop effective lessons. We're excited to have you with us today. We value your time and appreciate your active participation during this module. Here are a few suggested learning norms to make the most of your time. If possible, work in an environment with a few distractions so you can engage and reflect. Take notes and jot down ideas and questions as needed. And lastly, use this time wisely to ensure your professional learning with university instructors is productive. Here is our agenda for today's session: learning objectives, components of an effective lesson, using your planning time intentionally, and a summary. And here are the learning objectives for this session. By the end of this module, participants will be able to understand the essential components of an effective lesson, and learn how to intentionally use planning time to create purposeful instruction. Effective lesson planning is essential because it directly influences student engagement, classroom management, and overall learning outcomes. When lessons are thoughtfully designed, students are more focused and on task, and transitions and routines run smoothly, reducing disruptive behavior. Clear planning also supports accelerated learning by ensuring that objectives, assessments, and instructional activities are aligned, allowing instructors to scaffold content efficiently and target diverse learner needs. Some instructors face unique challenges, including juggling multiple preparations, teaching shorter class periods, and covering content-dense curricula, which makes strategic planning even more critical. Research highlights that high-yield instructional practices, such as setting clear objectives, providing feedback, and incorporating guided practice, significantly improves student achievement, reinforcing the importance of investing time in effective lesson design. Let's first begin with components of an effective lesson. An effective lesson ensures that all students meet the learning expectations by the end of the session. This is achieved through a carefully planned sequence of engaging and purposeful learning activities that address students' diverse needs. Regardless of how well a lesson is delivered or structured, it is ineffective if students do not achieve the intended learning objectives, emphasizing the critical importance of aligning planning, instruction, and assessment. Let's test for some prior knowledge. This is a quick activity called 1 Minute Share. The goal is to recall and reinforce the components of an effective lesson. Here's how it works. First, take a moment to think of one key component of an effective lesson. And two, stop the video and jot down your answers. This is a very fast, low pressure way to activate prior knowledge and to get you thinking about what makes a lesson effective before we dive deeper. Here are the 7 components of an effective lesson. Can you determine under which component your response fell? Can you identify what might have been missing? Now that we have activated our prior knowledge and possibly identified areas in which we need to learn more, let's unpack these components and look at some examples. An effective lesson begins with clearly defined standards and objectives, so students understand what they are expected to learn. Success criteria provide a roadmap for achieving these objectives. Instructors activate students' prior knowledge to make new learning meaningful, and then provide explicit instruction and modeling, demonstrating skills or concepts step by step. Students engage in guided practice with instructors' support, followed by independent practice to reinforce mastery. Throughout the lesson, checks for understanding, CFUs, ensure students are progressing, and closure and reflection help consolidate learning and connect it to future lessons. Together, these components create a purposeful, structured sequence that allows all students to meet learning expectations. Strong learning objectives are specific, measurable, and aligned to standards. giving students a clear understanding of what they are expected to learn and why it matters. For example, in ELA, an objective might be analyze the theme of a story using textual evidence. In math, solve multi-step equations with accuracy. In science, explain the process of photosynthesis and its role in energy transfer. And in social studies, describe key causes of the Civil War. A quick check for effective objectives is asking, can students clearly state what they're learning and why? If they can, the objective is strong and actionable. Strong learning objectives are specific, measurable, and aligned to standards, giving students a clear understanding of what they are expected to learn and why. For example, in ELA, the focus is on having students analyze how an author develops a central idea, using textual evidence so they can better understand how writers build meaning and strengthen their analytical reading skills. In math, students solve multi-step linear equations and explain the steps taken so they can develop procedural fluency and justify their reasoning as they face increasingly complex algebraic problems. In science, students will model how thermal energy transfers between objects so they can clearly explain real-world phenomena such as temperature change, heat flow, and energy efficiency. In social studies, students will evaluate the causes of the American Civil War, using primary sources so they can deepen their understanding of historical perspectives and strengthen evidence-based reasoning. Success criteria clarify what success looks like for both instructors and students, ensuring everyone understands the expectations for the lesson. These can include rubrics, exemplars, or student-friendly I can statements that break the learning goal into observable, actionable steps. To make success criteria effective, they should be visible throughout the lesson, posted in the classroom, included on student materials, or referenced during instruction, so students can monitor their own progress, and instructors can provide targeted feedback. Clear, actionable success criteria help students take ownership of learning and allow instructors to measure achievement accurately. Success criteria show what success looks like for both instructors and students and make learning goals concrete and actionable. In ELA, students know they are successful if their paragraph includes a clear claim, two pieces of evidence, and commentary explaining each. In math, if they show each step of an equation and justify each operation. In science, if their model correctly depicts heat transferring from warmer to cooler objects with labeled arrows. In social studies, if their explanation includes at least three causes supported by a primary source quote. Using rubrics, exemplars, and student-friendly I can statements makes these criteria visible, actionable, and easy for students to self-assess their progress. Activating prior knowledge engages students at the start of a lesson and helps them connect new content to what they already know. Effective strategies include warm-ups, quick writes, retrieval prompts, and hooks that get students thinking and focused. Instructors can also use cues, questions, and advanced organizers, a high-yield Marzano strategy, to guide attention, highlight key concepts, and prepare students for learning. By intentionally linking new material to prior knowledge, students are more likely to understand, retain, and apply what they learn. Activating prior knowledge helps students connect new content to what they already know and engages them at the start of a lesson. In ELA, students might respond to a quick write, such as, what themes do you notice often appear in a dystopian literature? In math, a warm-up could include solving three one-step equations to review inverse operations. In science, students could predict what happens to ice when placed in warm water and then discuss their observations. In social studies, a map activity might ask students to label regions involved in early U.S. conflicts. These activities, paired with cues, questions, and advanced organizers, prepare students to engage meaningfully with new learning. Effective instruction relies on clear explanations, think alouds, and work examples to make complex learning accessible for students. Clear explanations provide students with a roadmap by defining key terms, breaking ideas into manageable steps, and connecting each part of the lesson to the learning goal. Think alouds help students understand the decision-making process when interpreting a prompt, choosing a strategy, or troubleshooting when stuck, making expert thinking visible. Worked examples reduce cognitive load and show students what strong work looks like, whether it's a sample paragraph, a modeled solution, an annotated diagram, or a step-by-step lab procedure. Together, these practices allow instructors to effectively model complex tasks that are common in upper elementary and secondary classrooms, such as multi-step math problems, extended writing assignments, or lab procedures, so that all students can access rigorous learning. ELA, annotating a paragraph to identify the author's claim, involves underlining key phrases and adding margin notes to summarize supporting evidence. In math, solving a multi-step equation is modeled by reading the problem, combining like terms, isolating the variable, and explaining the purpose of each operation. In science, setting up a data table for a heat transfer lab includes labeling columns with units, recording sample measurements, and emphasizing consistency and accuracy. In social studies, sourcing and annotating a primary document requires identifying the author, date, and context, and highlighting details that clarify the historical event. Across all subjects, making thinking visible helps students understand not only what to do, but also the reasoning behind each step. Scaffolding supports student learning by breaking complex tasks into manageable steps and providing guidance as needed. Strategies include chunking content into smaller, sequenced pieces, offering prompts or cues to guide thinking, providing sentence stems to support structured responses, and giving partially completed problems to model the process while allowing practice. Small group check-ins provide opportunities to monitor understanding, give targeted feedback, and adjust support in real time. Strategic questioning during these sessions encourages students to explain their reasoning, make connections, and build independence gradually. By combining structured supports with interactive guidance, scaffolding helps all students engage successfully with challenging tasks while gradually transferring responsibility for learning to them. Scaffolding helps students engage with complex tasks by providing structured support and guidance. In ELA, students identify themes in pairs while the instructor circulates to ask prompting questions that guide thinking. In math, students complete the first half of a worksheet while the instructor checks each step, ensuring understanding before moving forward. In science, students practice using sensors or thermometers under supervision, receiving feedback on proper technique and measurement. And in social studies, students analyze a primary source together using a graphic organizer to structure observations and highlight key details. Across all subjects, these scaffolding strategies, chunking, prompts, sentence stems, and partially completed tasks, combined with small group check-ins and strategic questioning, help students build confidence, practice skills correctly, and gradually move towards independence. Effective instruction ensures that students can apply their learning without supports, demonstrating true mastery of the skill or concept. Tasks should be carefully chosen to align directly with the learning objective, providing a clear, measure of understanding rather than simply practice or repetition. For example, students might solve a new multi-step math problem rather than repeat a practice example, analyze a new primary source in social studies rather than reread one already discussed, or write a short response to a new text in ELA rather than summarizing a familiar passage. The focus is on designing activities that require independent thinking and transfer, allowing instructors to accurately assess whether students have internalized the learning and can apply it to new contexts. Ensuring students can apply learning independently requires tasks that directly measure the intended objective. In ELA, students write a paragraph analyzing the theme of the new text, demonstrating comprehension and analytical skills without guidance. In math, students solve 5 multi-step equations independently, applying problem-solving strategies accurately. In science, students complete a lab analysis question set, interpreting data and drawing conclusions on their own. And in social studies, students write a summary of key causes and effects using notes, showing understanding of historical relationships. These tasks move beyond practice to assess mastery, provide clear evidence that students can transfer learning to new and authentic situations. Frequent and fast checks for understanding, CFUs, help instructors monitor student learning in real time and adjust instruction immediately. Examples include thumbs up, thumbs down, whiteboards, exit tickets, and quick quizzes. These strategies provide immediate insight into student comprehension, allowing instructors to catch misconceptions before they become ingrained. When CFUs reveal confusion, instructors can respond in the moment by reteaching a key step, providing an additional example, asking guiding questions, or pairing students for peer explanation. The goal is to intervene quickly, clarifying misunderstandings, and ensure that all students are prepared to move forward with confidence rather than letting gaps persist. Frequent checks for understanding allow instructors to gauge learning in real time and respond to confusion immediately. In ELA, an exit ticket can ask students to identify the claim and two supporting details from the passage, showing whether they understood the author's argument. In math, students can use whiteboards to display the next step in solving an equation, giving immediate visual feedback on their process. In science, a quick quiz might ask students to identify which way heat flows in 3 different scenarios, revealing conceptual understanding. And in social studies, a thumbs up or down check can determine whether students recognize a document as a primary source. When these CFUs show confusion, instructors can reteach a step, provide an additional example, or ask guiding questions to clarify thinking, ensuring that all students are ready to proceed. Lesson closure provides an opportunity to consolidate learning and ensure students can articulate what they have understood. Strategies include summaries, share outs, reflection prompts, and learning logs, all of which encourage students to process and synthesize key ideas. Effective closure ties directly back to the lesson objective and success criteria, reinforcing the intended learning outcomes. For example, students might summarize the main idea of a text in ELA, explain the solution strategy for a math problem, reflect on patterns observed in a science experiment, or highlight key causes and effects in social studies. By connecting the closing activity explicitly to the objective, instructors can confirm understanding and provide students with a clear sense of accomplishment and readiness to move forward. Lesson closure helps students consolidate learning and reflect on understanding while connecting back to the lesson objective and success criteria. In ELA, students might complete the prompt, one thing I learned about how authors develop central ideas is encouraging synthesis of a text. In math, students can reflect by answering which step in multi-step equations is easy for you, which is hard, identifying areas of confidence and challenge. In science, a summary statement such as heat transfer always moves from blank to blank reinforces key concepts. And in social studies, a 3-2-1 activity, 3 causes, 2 key people, and 1 lingering question helps students organize and process historical information. These strategies ensure closure is meaningful, targeted, and directly tied to the learning objectives, giving both instructors and students a clear measure of understanding. Now that we have reviewed the components, let's reflect. Write one key component of an effective lesson that you use or value the most and explain why. Stop the video at this time to jot down your answers. Possible responses may include clear learning goals. I make sure students know the learning objectives at the start because it helps them understand the purpose of the lesson and stay focused. Informative assessment. I use quick checks for understanding throughout the lesson because it allows me to adjust instruction and ensure students are grasping the concepts. Now that we understand the components of an effective lesson, let's talk about how we can use our planning time intentionally for this purpose. What happens when we fail to plan effective lessons? When we walk into the classroom unprepared and without an effective lesson, students don't learn at the high levels we desire. In addition, student misbehavior often increases, or students check out mentally. A good lesson plan with engaging learning activities is one of the best ways to prevent misbehavior and students literally falling asleep in class. The time to prepare effective lessons is well worth it. This is why you have scheduled time each day to plan effective lessons with your co-instructor, teammates, or independently. Effective planning begins with identifying and is essential versus optional. Must-have elements are those that directly impact student learning and align with the lesson objectives, such as clear success criteria, essential content, and high leverage activities. Nice to have elements, while enriching, can be deferred or adapted if time is limited, such as multi-step projects. By prioritizing, you can intentionally focus on what will most effectively impact student learning. Developing time-saving planning habits help instructors focus on the most important tasks without sacrificing quality. Time-saving strategies including batching similar tasks, reusing effective routines, and preparing materials in advance. Planning must also address diverse learners by embedding supports such as visual aids, sentence stems, and extension opportunities. Instructors often juggle multiple preps, large class sizes, and varied skill levels. This makes prioritization essential. Effective planning begins by sequencing decisions. First, identify the standards, then determine the learning objective. Design assessments aligned to that objective, and finally, select tasks and activities that support mastery. This approach prevents activity-first planning, where engaging tasks may not connect to meaningful learning, and ensures that every minute of instruction is purposeful and aligned to the standard. Prioritizing in this way helps instructors focus on what truly matters, supports consistent student progress, and maximizes the impact of instructional time. Instructional planning begins by clearly aligning standards, objectives, assessments, and tasks to ensure each component supports meaningful learning. For an ELA standard, such as cite textual evidence, the objective might be students will cite strong evidence to support inferences. The assessment could be a short response paragraph, while tasks progress from modeling annotation to a guided evidence hunt, and finally, independent writing. In math, for a standard like solve systems of equations, the objective could be students will solve systems using substitution. Assessment might include 3 problems solved with justification, while tasks follow a sequence of demonstration, partner work on a scaffolded problem set, and an exit ticket. Sequencing planning this way ensures that each task builds towards the objective. Assessments measure mastery, and instructional time is used efficiently and purposefully. For the science standard, Analyze Energy Transfer, the objective might be students will explain conduction and real-world scenarios. Assessment could include a diagram with a written explanation, while tasks progress from demonstrating conduction using a metal rod to guided note-taking, and finally an application task where students analyze new situations. For the social studies standard, Evaluate Primary Sources, the objective could be students will analyze a Civil War letter for perspective. Assessment might involve completing a source analysis chart, while tasks move from instructor modeling to partner practice to independent document analysis. Sequencing planning in this way ensures tasks build toward the objective, assessments measure mastery, and instructional time is purposeful and aligned with standards. Sequencing planning in this way ensures that every task and assessment aligns to the objective, maximizes instructional time, and supports student mastery. Sometimes instructors only have 45 to 50 minutes to deliver a lesson, making clarity essential. Clear objectives, well-sequenced tasks, and explicit instructions help students focus quickly on what matters the most. When learning goals, directions, and expectations are communicated precisely, instructional time is used efficiently, reducing confusion and allowing more time for meaningful practice, discussion, and application. Clarity also supports diverse learners by ensuring that all students understand the purpose of each activity and what success looks like, which is especially important in short class periods where every minute counts. Effective lesson planning requires identifying what is essential versus what is optional. Must-have elements include a clear objective with success criteria, at least one strong check for understanding, modeling or explicit instruction, and time for guided and independent practice. These components ensure that students engage meaningfully with the content and achieve the lesson's learning goals. Nice-to-have elements such as extended stations, long discussions, multi-step group projects, or extra videos and enrichment tasks should be included only when time allows. A helpful strategy is to write a small priority box at the top of the lesson plan, noting what cannot be cut if time is limited. This ensures that even in a shortened class, instruction focuses on what truly matters and prevents critical learning opportunities from being lost. Because instructors often lose planning time due to other professional responsibilities, meetings, or administrative tasks, it's essential to learn time-saving tips for planning lessons. Let's watch a video clip on quick tips for lesson planning. While watching the video, jot down some of the tips and think about how you could apply these ideas to your lesson planning and preparation time.
Planning lessons can be one of the most overwhelming components of becoming an educator. And especially when you're just starting out and you don't have that toolbox of tips and tricks to pull from, it can be even more taxing. So today, I want to share with you 3 quick ideas that are going to make your lesson plans better and take less time to do. Here we go. The first idea here is to start with the end in mind. Too many times we start lesson planning with the beginning in mind of what are the core curriculum standards, or what is my bell ringer going to be, or my pre-class, or something like that. Instead, start with the ending in mind. So if you take out your curriculum, I want you to look at it from beginning to end for the particular unit that you're on, and then ask the following questions as you look through that curriculum. What are you expected to cover? What do you want your students to learn? And what skill or skills do you want them to gain? Still engaging with the curriculum, thinking about Where are my students' levels now? And then where do I want them to get to? Because your curriculum is oftentimes tied to where students should be or where neurotypical students are. And what you want is a really real sense of this is where we're at, this is where we need to get to. And then I want you to think about how are the 504s in your class and the IEPs in your class going to affect the answer to some of these questions. This is probably for a longer video, but I feel like students with learning disabilities and learning differences are often thought of as after the fact. We build the model and then we try and figure out how we're going to fit them in. It's so much easier and it serves the students so much better when we build the lesson with them in mind as well. Another question to ask yourself, what if this was easy? Too often, we create lessons to fill a class period. We create lessons to fill the time that we have given. So we have to teach inferences or fractions or the Battle of Waterloo, whatever you're teaching, in your 50-minute period or your hour and 30-minute period, whatever it is. We take the lesson and stretch it to fill the time. And I'm asking, if we made this as simple as possible, if you really broke this down, could you explain it to students in a very easy and simple way and then figure out something else to fill the period? Sometimes we as educators make things harder than they need to be, more complicated than they need to be, just so it looks like we're doing our job, when we forget that our job is to educate young people and to help them understand. Don't put barriers in the way of helping kids get from where they are to where they need to be. And the quickest way to do that is to ask yourself, what if this was easy? My third tip here is to remember, look, don't recreate the wheel. You don't get extra credit for coming up with original lesson plans. And if you're just beginning as an educator, it's so much easier to pull from other people's ideas and then turn them into your own. No one ever started a band and started writing originals. I think I've said that somewhere before. Everyone starts with cover songs. This is no different. And so this is actually something I go into great detail in our classroom management workshop, where I talk about how to create engaging lessons. And the link for that is in the description below. But if you take what someone else has, it at least gives you a jumping off point, because you already know where you want to go. You already have decided what if this was easy. You are now looking for ideas to help implement that. So the study guide questions I'm going to come up with on my own are probably similar to something someone else has already created. So a few places that I love to look are the New York Times lesson planning page is a treasure trove of great stuff. I've used Scholastic for a lot of stuff in my class. I think often a lot of textbooks have good stuff. They're just too full of nonsensical nonsense. And so stripping some of that away and taking what's at the core and then sprinkling my own magic.
After watching this video, what are some time-saving tips? How could you apply one or more of these ideas to your lesson planning and preparation time? Stop the video at this time to jot down your answers. Some possible answers could be use templates and routines. Creating lesson plan templates or standard routines saves times because I don't have to start from scratch each week. I can quickly plug in new content and activities. Batch planning. I plan multiple lessons at once so I can focus on similar tasks together, which reduces the time spent switching during different subjects or formats. And leverage technology, using digital tools like shared documents, interactive slides, or pre-made resources saves time and keeps materials organized. Let's continue to share time-saving habits. As we do, look for commonalities with those learned from the video. You should hear some overlap. Batch planning involves creating multiple lessons, activities, or instructional components at once, rather than planning day by day. For those instructors who may only have planning a few days a week due to professional learning or recurring meetings, or for those on a block schedule, this approach can save time, reduces stress, and improves lesson quality. By planning in batches, instructors can ensure consistency across lessons, streamline the creation of materials, and allocate attention to differentiating tasks for diverse learners. Additionally, batch planning allows instructors to anticipate challenges, organize assessments, and integrate high-impact instructional strategies more efficiently, making the most of limited planning time. Batch planning saves time and ensures consistency by creating multiple lessons or instructional components at once. For example, ELA instructors can plan all weekly bell ringers at once and store them in a Google Classroom or Microsoft Drive for easy access. In math, problem sets for an entire unit can be batch created, varying only the numbers each day, which reduces repetitive work. In science, lab station cards can be pre-made and reused across multiple classes or units. And in social studies, essential questions for each day of the unit can be written ahead of time, providing clear learning targets for students. Across subjects, batch planning helps instructors focus on instruction and student engagement, rather than day-to-day preparation. Another time-saving habit is reusing high-structured routines. These are pre-planned, predictable instructional patterns that can be reused across lessons, units, and even years. These routines help students focus on content instead of learning new procedures, which increases engagement and efficiency in the classroom. They also save planning time by providing a consistent framework for instruction, assessments, and practice activities. Examples include using the same discussion protocol, graphic organizer, exit ticket format, or lab setup repeatedly. By establishing routines once and reusing them, instructors can streamline lesson preparation, reduce cognitive load for students, and maintain a consistent classroom structure that supports learning across diverse groups. Reusing high-structure routines allows instructors to focus on content rather than procedures, saving planning time and creating consistency for students. For warm-ups, ELA might use a daily journal prompt, math, a spiral review problem, science, a prediction question, and social studies, a map or timeline check. For stations, pre-printed protocols can be reused across any content, including an instructor table, independent practice, vocabulary or skill station, and a text station. The key benefit is that only the content changes when the structure remains the same. This consistency helps students understand expectations quickly, supports independent work, and allows instructors to spend more time planning meaningful learning rather than reinventing procedures. High-structure routines such as daily bell ringers and consistent note-taking formats help students focus immediately and reinforce learning. For bell ringers, ELA students might complete a quick annotation task to identify a literary device. Math students could solve a 3-minute problem, reviewing the previous day's concept. Science students could predict an outcome or answer a short quiz question. And social studies students might label regions on a map or answer a key historical question. Note-taking routines can also be reused. The Cornell note structure is a 2-column approach where students add questions from or about the content to the left column, answers to those questions to the right column, and a summary of their learning in a space at the bottom of the page. Guided notes provide partial notes with blanks to fill during instruction, while concept maps help students visually organize relationships, such as cause and effect in history or energy flow in science. These reusable routines support student engagement, consistency, and comprehension across content levels. Finally, using your planning time intentionally means embedding planning for diverse learners in advance. For example, IEP and 504 accommodations should be embedded into lesson plans from the start, rather than waiting until the day of instruction. Planning accommodations up front ensures that lessons are accessible for all students and reduces last-minute stress. This also proves true for English language learners, who will need additional supports and specific groupings when learning the content. This is easier to plan in advance, rather than attempting to modify instruction or group students in the moment. Effective lesson planning for students with IEPs or 504 plans begins by identifying accommodations that are listed in the individual student's IEP or 504 and embedding them up front. Common supports include extended time, reduced number of problems, scheduled breaks, options for digital versus handwritten work, preferential seating, and audio supports. Planning ahead ensures these accommodations are consistently implemented rather than added reactively. For example, if a student requires chunking of material, a 20-minute question worksheet can be broken into sections of 5 problems with check-in points between each section. This approach helps students access the content successfully, stay on task, and reduces instructional disruptions while allowing instructors to plan proactively and efficiently. Effective support for English language learners includes simple, high-impact strategies that make content accessible while promoting language development. Examples include word banks, visual supports, level 1 or tier 1 resources, or bilingual dictionaries, partner talk before whole class discussion, and sentence frames such as the data shows that to scaffold academic language. Subject-specific examples help illustrate these strategies in context. For instance, in science labs, providing label diagrams instead of text-only instructions allows ELLs to follow procedures accurately while reducing language barriers. Embedding these supports upfront ensures that multilingual learners can engage meaningfully with content, participate confidently, and demonstrate understanding alongside their peers. Heard and learned much about how to craft components of an effective lesson during your planning period. But we know that when we return to the classroom, we may lose sight of these suggestions. So let's do an activity that allows us to reflect on tasks that monopolize our planning time and consider how we can instead prioritize lesson planning and the strategies learned here. We're going to use a prioritize by impact matrix to visualize where our time is best spent. Here's how it works. Draw a simple 2 by 2 grid, label the x-axis as effort, low to high, and the y-axis as impact, low to high. Take a few minutes to list the tasks you usually do during your planning period, like grading, lesson prep, emails, or creating new materials. Place each task into one of the 4 quadrants. Number 1, high impact, low effort. Those are due first. These are quick wins that move student learning forward immediately. Number 2, high impact, high effort. Schedule carefully. Important tasks, but plan ahead. Don't leave them for the last minute. Number 3, low impact, low effort. Do if extra time. It's nice to do, but not essential, and only if time allows. Number 4, low impact, high effort. Avoid or delegate. These tasks take too much time for too little student impact. Find ways to reduce or share them. After placing your tasks on the matrix, reflect. Which task can you eliminate, batch, or share to focus more on high impact activities? This activity helps us work smarter, not harder, ensuring our planning time supports the most meaningful student learning. Stop the video to jot down your answers. Possible example tasks for quadrants: high impact, low effort could be quick formative assessment prep, creating bell work or morning meetings, posting learning objectives. High impact, high effort, designing a new project, creating differentiated lessons, or revising assessments. Low impact, low effort, organizing classroom supplies, updating bulletin boards, minor clerical tasks. Low impact, high effort, writing overly detailed lesson plans for low priority activities, formatting long documents, or redundant grading. We have covered a lot of content, so let's quickly review. Effective lessons combine clear objectives with success criteria, activation of prior knowledge, explicit instruction, guided and independent practice, frequent checks for understanding, and meaningful closure. Intentional use of planning time ensures that these components are aligned and purposeful. Planning should follow a sequence. Prioritize standards, then define objectives, design assessments, and select tasks that support mastery. Batch planning can save time and promote consistency, while reusing high-structured routines such as warm-ups, note-taking formats, or station protocols enhances efficiency and clarity for students. Additionally, embedding supports for students with IEPs or 504 plans, as well as ELLs, ensures that all students can access the content, engage meaningfully, and meet learning goals. Practical implementation involves planning for must-have elements first and adding nice-to-have activities only if time allows. We hope you enjoyed this module on components of an effective lesson, using your planning time to develop effective lessons. Please complete the check for understanding and the survey included in the Google Classroom. Thank you, and we look forward to providing continued support for your professional growth at University Instructors.